Every great event looks effortless. The crowds arrive, the lights come on, the experience unfolds seamlessly. But behind every moment of spectacle, there is an invisible world of planning, precision, and execution. Infrastructure built from the ground up, teams working round the clock, and leaders responsible for delivering perfection in real time. For more than 2 decades, Lee Thomas has operated in that world. From World Cups to global sporting events, he has helped create the environments where millions of people experience moments that will stay with them forever. Today on Braadcast, we go behind the scenes of global events, hospitality, and the business of experience with Lee. Welcome, Lee. Welcome to Braadcast. It's so good to have you here, and it's wonderful to be part of this broadcast episode because, and how appropriate. We go back a while, and with everything happening in South Africa, we could not think of anyone more suitable to be and share your story because it's an incredible one, and especially how appropriate after yesterday, what happened at the golf, and we're recording today, but to share that with us. So Lee, welcome, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Norman, thank you very much for having me. I must say I've listened to a few of your podcasts, so I've got to be on my top game, but looking forward to it. I know we got a lot of history, so maybe you'll keep me on the straight and narrow for the majority of this.
Well, I'm going to try and ask you the most honest questions because I think your story is incredible, from how you started and where you are today, the journey of your business, how it's grown and unfolded, and to what you've created today, and the amount of people that are working for you and putting everything together, and behind some of the most extravagant events that we've had in South Africa. It's I think it's going to go a long way to hear that story. So tell us, Lee, from the very beginning. I know you come from a very humble family. You went to Highlands North School, a school close to my heart, from family members that have been there. Tell us a bit about your upbringing.
Yes, well, that's something you're not often asked. It actually started because I was brought up in Orange Grove. I went to a little school called Linksfield Primary, and went on to go to Highlands North purely because of the location of where we lived in Orange Grove. My dad, who tried desperately to get my older brother, my younger brother, and I all into King Edward's. But I think we were 2 roads out for automatically being able to go to King Edward's. So we landed up going to Highlands North, and I think the rest is history because we all did relatively well at rugby, and the school itself I found was absolutely fabulous. It's such a diverse school, from the Lebanese, Italians, the Jewish, and so on. I think I was a minority, as we'd call it, because it was more like immigrant families, but gave the best sort of culture I could actually think of, because we just mixed so well as kids growing up.
Well, some of the most successful business people came out of that school, and I can tell you, just to mention a couple of those names. Maurizio, the Mariana family came out of the Sartor family, very successful in their own right. Ivor Katz, Richard Kaplan, the golfer, came out of that school. Yeah. And that era of Highlands North and Kes, those days, I think there were those fierce battles between the schools, and Highlands North was well respected in the rugby field. And you and your family, I think, all went on to play high-level rugby and for Transvaal, I think, and yes, yeah. You represented a province at the time, which was, in its own right, an achievement. So talk us a bit about your rugby career.
Well, I was very fortunate to come from a very, very sporting family. My dad was a boxer, not a big man. I think he was 5'8" as a height. Smallish man.
Where did you come from?
Well, all 3 of us are tall, so I really don't know, to be honest with you. My mother was 5'2", so either the milkman was very tall, but we all represented Transvaal schools. and you talk about the King Edward's and Highlands North battles. My senior years wasn't the case, purely because I think in the year 79, Charles Gassenhoven, also quite a famous Highlands North guy, they beat Cairns at Cairns in 79. And there was an altercation afterwards. Highlands North was a fairly rough and tough and ready to go sort of school.
Wild.
And, I'd say controlled. I wouldn't say wild. I'd say we were controlled aggression. But, and because of that, there was a fight afterwards. And because of that, King Edward's led the way, and the English schools refused to play Highlands North. Okay, so we had an Irish headmaster, Mr. O'Mara. He, in his wisdom, said, right, fine, if Cairns, Sandringham, Northcliffe, all these schools wouldn't play against Highlands. So he entered us into the administration cup. So we played with all the Afrikaans schools.
Oh.
Yeah, so we, from Langlaagte to Die Burger to Linden, all these big Afrikaans schools.
Affies,
yeah. Well, Affies was Pretoria, so it would have fallen outside of our little zone. But I think that
Monas was a
Monas, but we were there was a region.
Okay.
So it was mainly the
Administrators Cup, I remember
Cup,
it.
that's right. Yeah. So there was about 6 regions because it was so well represented. And so much so that Transvaal Rugby was so strong, they used to pick 2 teams to go to the Craven Week every year because there were so many schools to pick from. But I think part of my success was the Afrikaans selectors that picked all these teams at the time. Were watching us play week in, week out. So it wasn't as if I was a fly-by-night or whatever. We were able to, if we were perform
but
every game.
To make it as an Englishman,
yes.
From an English school, I know, even today, if you can achieve that fate, it's incredible because, it's not for the Afrikaans families. You're born to be a rugby player. Before you actually conceived, they've decided your fate. And so, it's just a bit different in the English family. So,
no, absolutely.
But they must have shaped you and your affinity towards sport and rugby, and you did well. And then you went to hotel school.
No, I didn't. I decided, because there was no real rugby in South Africa besides Currie Cup at the time. And my nemesis, I would say, was Val Bartman, who was an incredible rugby player.
You won't believe it. He's on the podcasting.
Oh.
Coming. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Because he's also got an incredible story. Amazing rugby player and amazing businessman.
And an amazing rugby family. All 3 of his brothers also played. But, him and I were in the same age group from standard 8 through to matric. And of course, every time we confronted each other, he was the bigger, stronger player. So I decided to go play overseas. I accepted a contract to go play in Italy, in a place called Livorno, which is in the near Tuscany. Then came back to SA, and then had another season in Italy. And then what's the name? Thomas, it's a Welsh background. So I was invited to go and play at London Irish and London Welsh, but obviously Welsh for the initial part was incredible for me. I was able to go to the UK, play out of London. I didn't have to go play in Wales, which is probably a mistake from my side. I think I should have played more there, but had some wonderful opportunities, playing in the European League, for want of a better word. It wasn't professional at that stage. It was amateur, so I had to get a job as well. Now, the VP of Hilton Global was one of the presidents of London Welsh at the time, and he got me a job within Hilton without having to go to hotel school. And of course, sales and marketing is pretty much all I've known. I think I was selling when I was in primary school. But so to sell was easy for me. And to go into a major company like the Hilton Hotel Group was fantastic. And I was able to work and play without really having to worry too much about career-wise. And I got a very good view of how business operated, especially within the hotel hospitality industry. It's a different hospitality what we talk about here, because it's all about food, beverage, rooms, and that sort of stuff. But it was the ethos of how the hotel sort of fraternity worked, which I quite liked. And I used that when I came back to South Africa, because that was one of the ways I could get promoted, is if I came back to South Africa and helped open the 2 Hilton hotels.
So you never went to hotel school per se?
Never. I think I drove past one once. That was about it. No, I was always in the
your
hotel.
grounding was practical, and you
Absolutely.
obviously he liked you, because I don't know many dull people coming out of Highlands North. So obviously that shaped your personality. He liked you, gave you an opportunity, and you took it.
Absolutely. And all I had to do was play rugby for his club. So these are little things that shape you.
It's amazing how sport opens doors.
Exactly.
Seen this so many times where you can be an average person or businessman, but the sport opens the door. You learn. I mean, this is another one story which you're telling me now. So you came back with those skills?
Yes, absolutely. And through sport, I still had incredible contacts. Rudolph Australia as an example. Him and I were together over the weekend. Yeah. Now, him and I played against each other as 16-year-olds. He was for the Bulls, I was for the Lions. And we went through most of our careers playing against each other, from the armies to the schools, and then club rugby. And then we played a bit together in Transvaal when he was, then he joined the Wanderers, which is where obviously I played my junior rugby. And we're still friends. We were.
But he went into business.
Yes,
and became very successful.
Coaching, and he's the CEO of the Lions Rugby, which is a tough job. That's they're a great outfit, but it takes a lot of good, hard, honest work to keep that club going. It's a tough business. The environment there where Ellis Park is, all of these elements count against you. And he's done a fabulous job. And a wonderful guy. We're still mates today.
You would say your early years, I mean, you learned a lot from him?
Well, again, I wouldn't say from Rudolph itself, but certainly later on. We called on a lot of his experience because we were involved with the Lions at one stage. We're a bit of a distance from them now, but at the time we were very close. But yeah, he was always someone you could talk to. He's very open, and his opinion is well sought after.
Tell me, the hotel group that you joined and you started and you worked for many years. Talk us through who was
the Hilton Hotel, which it's basically an American company owned by Ladbrokes.
But that was in South Africa.
Yes, well they are global,
okay.
And they decided to open 2 hotels in South Africa.
Because they were never in the beginning.
No. And then they decided to open in Johannesburg and in Durban, by the ICC in Durban, and then Sandton in Johannesburg. And I was part of the team from breaking ground to launching the hotel. I worked very closely with a lot of people. So it was experimental as well, because we had to understand what the market was like. And I think that's why they liked having a South African coming back, to just give a little bit more insight into the South African culture. So learning from our CEO at the time, who was from Austria, and another English guy that was part of the sales team with me. Between us, we put this whole thing together. But then I realized being back in South Africa and just having a job was not enough for me. I then saw the opportunity to go into my own business.
You say then. What was that pivotal moment when you realized you want to be in your own business? Because I think this is your career changing for you.
Yeah, so again, when you talk to people that go to hotel school, and no disrespect, they got a fantastic education, and they come out understanding the hotel industry. But when I sat down with my director, or the VP of Hilton Africa, And I said to him, well, where do I go next? And he said to me, well, you could become a general manager of a hotel, or we'll send you to Dubai as a sales director. And I thought to myself, gee whiz, that's not what I see as fun. I spent 10 years overseas playing and working, and then finally get back to South Africa. And the only way for me to really improve was to leave the country again. So looking at the environment, talking to a few people, and we just had the success of the 1995 Rugby World Cup. And, I made a couple of calls and I asked a few people a few things. And before I knew it, George Rotebach, another a great name to throw at you, is, he had got Megapro to a very good spot just before that the Rugby World Cup in 1995. And it just turned into an opportunity. So I pretty much looked at what he was doing, and I had a slight variation, but I pretty much was in the same business as Megapro at the time. Although I didn't do much sponsorship; it was more corporate hospitality.
They were in sports management as well.
More in sports management and sponsorship, and I went more into the corporate hospitality packaging type of thing, because that made sense with hotels. You're packaging a room with somewhere to eat and have a drink.
But you need a client to sell to you.
Absolutely. So then obviously went and approached the Wanderers Rugby Club, who were very keen for me to assist. Then straight on to the Lions, the Bulls. And at one stage, I had representation in every single stadium for the premier sides, from the Sharks, Stormers, at the time were Western Province. But so we established ourselves as one of the biggest corporate hospitality companies. And then, we looked at other areas, and golf was another big thing we wanted to get involved in. And we were very fortunate enough to do the Alfred Daniel for about 25 years. We still do it today.
That must have been an experience. I mean, I know possibly the greatest South African business. And one of the, still today, he runs the tour. If it wasn't for him, I think the South African golf tour wouldn't be in existence. But Johan Rupert, you kind of did work for him.
Yes, well,
being the Daniel, you must have had a report to him somehow.
Look, as he's a brilliant man, the support he gives to a number of people. I have a small story about him. So we've done the Alfred for when it was still at Houghton.
Yeah, I remember.
And then went to Leopard Creek after Houghton. So we've done 25 years of Alfred Daniels for.
What story do you have about Johan? I'd love to hear stories about Johan. He's such an incredible business.
I remember saying to him once, Mr. Rupert, we've been doing your Alfred Daniel event for 25 years. Without a contract. And he looked at me and just said, Lee, contract of no contract. If you do not perform, you're gone. So everyone says you're as good as your last game. Absolutely. And so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
This is even more so, because it's his company. He's an extension of him.
If anyone's done work for that group, I can use a feather in their cap. So I'm just saying, because you must have been able to deliver. For 25 years, you were doing something right.
Well, we truly believe that.
You went from this hospitality business, and it was growing. You were almost in every single stadium, so part of almost the main big organizations of the rugby fold. Then you started getting into the kind of nuts and bolts, should I say? Actually, would that be the correct word? Yes. Of putting the whole event together.
Yes.
When did that happen? Because there must have been a need for it in the market for you to be able to get involved in that.
Absolutely. So we started with, obviously, the Sunshine Tour, which is a fantastic organization. And we were doing the PGA, which was at Leopard Creek at the time. And we were doing Alfred Daniel, which is at Houghton. And then the PGA moved, and then they moved the Daniel back to Leopard Creek. And there was a couple of suppliers of marquees that we used to have to rent from. And they started getting, I don't know, maybe over aggressive, for want of a better word, where they were saying, listen, you're running 4 or 5 golf events and, you get the pitch ahead of us. If you don't hand some work to us, we're going to stop supplying you with marquees. So I went and started.
Business lesson number 1.
Buy your own marquees.
Today. Business lesson number 1 today.
Yeah. So I moved into more the infrastructure, which is not just marquees. It's the flooring, the carpeting, and air cons and generators and all those elements that form part of what you need for a successful event. Because at the end of the day, what people don't realize as well, you see a tournament that happens around the corner, for want of a better word. And the thing is, you pitched for that 9, 10, a year before in advance. So you've got to pitch the price, you've got to pitch the look and feel, you've got to pitch all those elements about a year before the event actually happens. So the last thing you want is something that's going to be the wrong price, or if you don't own the product, then you're at the mercy of certain suppliers who, at times everyone takes advantage at some stage. But the art of doing events of this nature is being able to budget it correctly from the start to finish.
I mean, us as people that go and watch these events, just as spectators, enthusiasts, and we take it all for granted. We buy a ticket, whether it's hospitality, whether it's just to go and visit and view, and we walk through the gates, but we don't realize the amount of effort. 95% of the job is done before the actual event, setting up sound, lighting, stadium, music. I mean, that must in its own right have created so much pressure, because that's real-time pressure. I mean, if you mess up while the event is on, you'll never get another job again, ever, I assume, in that competitive industry. But it's also more than that. I mean, you got to deliver safety, security, and everything that possibly encompasses the whole delivery of the experience. Talk us about some of those pressure moments and difficult times from some events that you've had to go through with now dealing not only with the hospitality side, because I think there, if someone's not enjoying themselves, they might be in a bad mood, the expectations might be high, they didn't get what they received. But on the basically infrastructure side, you really can't mess up. You can always make someone happy, give him a drink, or make him sit in a comfortable chair. But when it comes to the infrastructure side, there are no room for mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. If you just take conditions, so if you look at something where you do an event in Cape Town, you've got wind, heat, rain you've got to worry about. Then you come into the Highveld, no different, the thunderstorms. You saw this weekend with the Live Golf, the amount of rain that we had to deal with. Now, everyone, like you say, you collect your ticket, you go, you enjoy it, you love it, you leave, and you go home. Then 9 times out of 10, you say, oh, they made us leave the structure too early and all that. But what people need to also remember, we got to turn this around for the next day. So they got to replenish the bars, they got to clean up, they got to tidy up, they got to make sure the food's got to come in again on time. So there's so many aspects and elements that form part of putting an event like this together.
How big's your team?
Well, our team is about 120 people permanent, but we bring in close to 1,000, 2,000 per day to cover different areas of. But there's also lots of other suppliers that work with us, alongside us, so when you talk of a team, it's not just us on our own. We've got suppliers that you probably haven't even heard of that are crucial to events like this, that come in, support your vision, support your model, and also honor the quote they gave you maybe a year ago. So these are things that, the man in the street doesn't always see. The ticket price is set well in advance. And because there's a wobbly, no one comes and says, oh, we've got to add another 20% to your ticket because the weather's changed, or small things like that. So there's elements and aspects that are part of delivering this that are way bigger than just us, because we've got to rely on such a big team of other suppliers around us.
That's amazing. I mean, you got a whole bunch of these people, and obviously you got these different leaders of each team delivering and bringing together what you've been paid to do and signed to do and agree. So, I mean, talk us through the most difficult challenge that you've ever had before we get to COVID, because I know that in its own right must have been sleepless nights for almost every business.
And I have to say this, there's a challenge every event.
How's the power in South Africa affected your business?
That in itself, we went into owning our own generators purely because that was one aspect of the business that you couldn't be guaranteed of unless you own it yourself. And these are elements that you need to bring into the equation. So we had to go and invest some big money on generators. Because especially outdoor events, you look at, the SA Open a couple of years ago at Blair Athol, massive golf estate, all these homeowners. Now you can't rely on the power they need for their homes. So you've got to bring your own power in, and whether it's a TV screen. So when you plan an event like this, it's all well and good saying, you've got to have a screen, and you've got to have a bar at the 5th hole or the 6th hole, which is a kilometre and a half from the clubhouse. But think of companies like ourselves who have to facilitate that. So we've got to make sure there's power there. We've got to make sure there's staff there, and getting people around. And that's why, again, I don't know if you notice all these golf carts on the course on event day, and that's purely to get staff. Ice, if you run out of ice on the 7th hole, you've got a kilometre and a half to drive. You can't go in a bakkie or a little truck. You've got to go in a golf cart. So these golf carts these days are crucial to a successful golf event.
Did something ever happen in an event which you thought this was your cardiac arrest moment?
I've got a funny story, if we've got time for it. But obviously we'll get to COVID because there's another one there. But so we did, right in the beginning, we did one of the first Ironman events in South Africa. And it was supposed to be at Sun City. But there was a strike at the actual gates of the resort at Sun City. So we had to change. So we went closer to, because we needed water. So they could do the swim. So we actually went to Hartbeespoort Dam. So we moved the venue so we had 2 days to put the new route together. So we drove the route for the cycle. The swim was easy because it was in the Hartbeespoort Dam. But then we had to do the cycle and then the run. And we were in a bit of a resort. So where they did the changeover, so they come, if you know the type of event it is, they do the swim first, they're out that water, they're into their cleats, and they into their cycling stuff, they're on their bikes, and then they're cycling. And you know how fast these guys go because they... So anyway, so I was the only one who knew the route because I literally, we did it the day before. And so I was in the lead car with the clock, and we're driving out. And these guys are on their bikes and they were catching us very quickly. And at the boom, to get out of the resort, the security hadn't lifted the boom.
Oh my goodness.
So we've got 500-600 athletes on their bikes, like right on our tails. So I jump out the vehicle and I quickly get them opened, and they actually whiz past me.
But now they don't know where to go.
Correct. So they had it was about 4 or 5 kilometers before the first turn, but it wasn't signposted because of the last minute stuff. And there were 2 ladies sitting in their little car on the side of the road because they couldn't go anywhere until the cyclists went past. I said, move over, I need your car, please. They said, what? That's emergency. So this lady jumps out of her car, jumps in the back, and I literally drive behind the cyclists, get ahead of them all, and I think I had about maybe a half a kilometer, and I got to the turning. So I was back in the lead car, and with these guys firing, and I swear it must have been 500 meters before they said they had to turn, so they followed the vehicle. If it wasn't for those two ladies, that would have been the biggest disaster. And it was just something that I still today
wake up in Rustenburg.
No, yeah, I wake up in a cold sweat, thinking, what if I didn't?
Yeah.
Those ladies weren't there. I wouldn't have been able to get to that turning. And that's something that, like I say, is. And you try and think of everything, but it's just never the case. There's always something that's going to take you by surprise.
Then tell me, you before COVID, it was some glory years.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 2004 to all the way through to the World Cup. I mean, there's some amazing sporting events, some amazing World Cups and experiences that you were very much part of. And there were some successful years. Do you still have some of those team members that were with you from the very beginning that are with you today?
Absolutely. In fact, I just recently lost the first person I employed to join me. He immigrated to the UK. His wife got an incredible job, so he followed her. But my general manager, who's still involved, and accountant, she's still there, and a couple of people that one was he used to clean the toilets at the Wanderers Rugby Club, and he's one of my senior sort of
what amazing
guys.
Amazing.
And you talk of empowerment. Empowerment's one thing, but taking someone, and it was him and his wife that are still with us. And we brought them right through, and they just learned as they went along. It just got better and better. There was a team leader. Then he runs whole events for us at times. He's just so experienced, and he's got a fantastic head on his shoulders, and has been with us all this time. And those are things that excite me.
Well, 25 years might seem a long time, but when you're busy and you're having fun and you're doing event after an event, and it flies because you haven't got a moment to rest because you've got the next year to plan ahead, or maybe even 2 years to plan ahead. And it flies through so quickly. And then all of a sudden, those glory years arrives, the World Cup, which you were very involved in with hospitality and eventing. And tell us about that, because that must have been a momentous time in your life.
That was an interesting one because, you looked at, if you, in this industry, there's a few events you'd want to say, I have to be involved in that. A FIFA World Cup, without a question of it, a Rugby World Cup, Cricket World Cups, but a FIFA World Cup where it is truly a global event and working with people that are just so experienced and there's so much that they bring, was one of the highlights of my time as a company owner in this sort of industry. So the FIFA World Cup, from the announcement, was, remember the
first one we lost.
We lost. Yes, we lost. There was a vote. Although we were told we had it, then we were told no. There was another
the
vote.
Person that was supposed to vote for us and voted for someone else.
Look, not our favorite people, but I think he was a Kiwi. And then when it was announced that we'd won it, I'll never forget, I went past the bottle store, bought a couple of bottles of champagne, and whatever friends were around, I said, come on, we got to celebrate this. This is going to be enormous. And then from there, we were involved with Mr. Rupert's group, the Richmond group. And then we thought, let's put a consortium together of like-minded companies. So that's when MegaPro and ourselves, and they brought in the whole Prime Media group, and Mr. Rupert's group, because they had, we had to put down big deposits for an event like the FIFA World Cup. which I certainly didn't have anywhere near that sort of money or the clout to be able to give a guarantee of those numbers. So I was very fortunate enough to be able to go and pitch to FIFA itself and Match, which was the company that ultimately won it, that South Africa could.
So who financially backed you?
It was the Rupert Group and Prime Media.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Willie Kirsch. And,
just the more I hear about the stories, the more they've been involved with companies that you don't even know about.
Yeah, and this was very much behind the scenes. Yes, their front companies was MegaPro and Circa, but yet having that behind you, when you go and sit and talk to FIFA or an international organization, and you put your resume together, and you got the Kirsch Group and Mr. Rupert, you're in a proper space, and there's serious money that we had to put up for this event. So we had Sub-Sahara and South Africa as the rights for the full corporate hospitality market, which was incredible. And it's only then that you realize just how powerful an event like that is to a country like ours. And the demand, there was the corporates got involved. It's look at Live and times by 10, because it was almost that per stadium.
And challenges?
Always challenges. The original element was when FIFA said, right, all packages had to be sold and paid for in US dollars. So that was the first thing. Never before in South Africa had people been asked to pay for corporate hospitality or a ticket in a forex. And all of this money was being paid overseas. Yes, they were spending it back here.
Good thing it's not at today's prices that they're selling in America for.
No,
I think the stadiums will be a lot less full.
And I tell you what, I was quite excited when the dollar was, I think, 7-1 at the time. And we were saying, wow, that's fantastic. Now look at it. It's almost 18. So if you looked at it from that point of view, we needed government to get involved. Just the VAT as an example. South Africa, you couldn't claim that back as a hospitality product, whereas in Europe you could. So we were able, through FIFA, to get government to let that slide for this event, because otherwise anyone selling in Europe would have been 15% cheaper than us. So the government came on board and made that happen for us. So it helped us sell our product so much easier from a local basis. And to such an extent, I think we outsold Germany, if my memory serves me correctly, as a host. Obviously Germany was just on its own, where we were able to have Sub-Sahara, so there's all Nigeria as well as all the other countries that qualified. So it did change my perception of this as a sport versus a business.
But an incredible event. I don't think anyone had many criticism about the whole experience. As a South African, whether your team, we did so well, the opening game, I was at the opening game, Chabalala's goal, amazing goal, amazing time. But I'm saying everything that goes behind it and the experience, and you were part of that. And for a South African, we delivered.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it shows no matter what is out there. And I've been fortunate enough to go to World Cups, rugby and soccer abroad, but I can promise you, we held our head up high. I think even our experience even though it's local, it's been better. The stadiums have been world class. Not to say that they were bad in the other countries, but I think we kind of know how to look after people in this country. We're a lot more hospitable. I think that's what you're selling, and then that's your experience, and that's what. So that was an incredible job done by you guys, and then there's still glory years. 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way, and then for everyone we had COVID. So every time I ask people about that question or mention the name, they like change color. What happened to your business?
At that stage, we had grown the business to such an extent that our permanent staff was close to 186 people. Now, you don't really have to be a jet pilot to work out, with your events going from 100% down to, I think it was 3% we did. And the 3% were...
And no insurance on it.
You can't insure for that. We had loss of earnings, but not relating to COVID. And with, our we had to still pay for our...
Your salary bill must have been
well, we had to look at the TERS as well. We just said, listen, we can't pay everyone a full salary every month. It's just, we would have lasted maybe 3 or 4 months and we would have been broke ourselves. So we had to, unfortunately, the government did come with the TERS, but there's a lot of people that had to go find other work. So when we reopened after COVID, I think we had 76 of the 186 that were still happy to come back. Wow. So we did help wherever we could. And we tried to create opportunities where we could. But it was nigh on impossible. And, it gets even worse. So when the first year of COVID, then the British and Irish Lions were supposed to be coming. Now, I think this falls part of my biggest disappointment in this industry. I think it was 2001, the British and Irish Lions. So COVID had sort of come to an end. And then we had that new variation of the virus. I don't know if you remember that. And we had gone out and we had sold the entire British and Irish Lions, the hospitality program, all 3 tests, all the internal games as well. And then they turned around and said, right, no spectators. So we had to refund something like 350 million rand worth of hospitality we had sold. The refunding...
You're kidding me, right?
No, that's it. We had to refund every single person who had purchased, from overseas to local, every single penny. And there was no, we keep 5% for our admin fees or whatever. Nothing. And the amount of staff that were let down, think of the catering, the bar staff, the cleaning staff, the transports, the hotels, you name it, everything was gone. There was nothing we could actually do about it. And that probably, the game still happened. So that was...
Must have been close to closing.
That was very close as well. But television rights and all of that sort of stuff, they got it over the line. But for our industry, we were punished again, but severely.
How did you survive that?
I don't know. You look at your staff that found a way of doing it. We found a way. Everyone found a way. It was just so difficult. It was,
when you look at businesses and you see the name and you like put them together and you connect them with the industries, and it's good feeling moments, it's happy and enjoying it, and you think, they're making money, they're enjoying themselves and everything, but they forget the tough times when, oh my dear, what you went through, close to basically bankruptcy in the most difficult times, because I don't know, it just doesn't seem like there's any end to it when you're in it.
When you're in it, you're absolutely right. What is the next? Is there another virus? Is there another type of virus that's going to come out? It was just, so when that came to an end.
How did you get out of it?
Patience, loyal staff.
What was your first event post-COVID that helped you get out of it?
Well, this for me has got probably the most satisfaction and loyalty that I feel. It is guys like Selwyn Nathan, Thomas Abt from the Sunshine Tour. They came back. The first event we did of substance was the SA Open. And
just to interrupt you.
Sorry.
Selwyn's also been on the show. He interviewed. He's a legend in the industry, and highly respected and well liked. So it's amazing that these names are keep surfacing the same names that are involved in business and in property and in industry. It's amazing. So sorry I interrupted you.
No. But Selwyn is just a legend in not just golf, in the industry. You know, he's probably, I think, the best networker I've ever seen operate in this country. He just knows everyone, and he recognizes people, and he talks, and he spends time, and he gives you time. And that I find an incredible trait that he has that is just unbelievable. So going back to the SA Open, and it was going to Sun City only because it was the only place that we could monitor, because we had to test everyone. So the players were coming in. They all had to be tested before they played. Every service provider, every person that worked on that event had to be tested for COVID every day. So when you arrived, and then you had to wear masks and all, we were restricted to 5 guests per company. So as you know, in a corporate hospitality market, that's next to nothing. But being able to go to Sun City and have a room in between everyone, so you could just really keep it at bay. And it was a huge
Well, the hotel industry went through an absolute
as bad as us.
nightmare. I mean, I've spoken to some of them. I mean, literally on the verge of collapse for many of them. Yeah. They had to sell some assets just to basically fund the debt that they had. You know.
Well, I had to sell some marquees. I had to sell some infrastructure just to get us through the COVID period. But, you know, so going back to that first event, that was great. And then, of course, guess what? The Sunshine Tour. Then Alfred Daniel happened. Mr. Rupert made sure. So just as COVID was hitting, I got to tell you the story again about Mr. Rupert. So we had pretty much built, this is 2019, just before COVID hit. I think COVID was 2020. The March of 2020. And I think it was like the February, Alfred Daniel was supposed to happen. And we had built the whole thing. All the work had been done. And I think there was about a week or so to go. And COVID hit. They said they shut down. It's not going to happen. And we got a message from Mr. Rupert's group saying, guys, thank you for all the hard work. And they paid us in full. You know, there would have been a lot of other companies that would have come to us and say, you know, give us a discount because it's not going to happen. And this.
Well, I know some really, I'm not going to mention here, big companies, very wealthy companies, and in the property industry and businesses that refuse to pay rent in those times, you know, and obviously some of the landlord and property companies face some very difficult times, and not some rents, completely no rent. So, you know, it's just testament to who they are and what their culture and the ethics. And
yeah, well, you know, I'm not going to mention names, but the company we rented from said to us, we'll give you 6 months grace on your rent, which I thought was great. 6 months was up, and they came and they said, right, you need to now pay that 6 months in full plus interest. So we landed up paying the whole of COVID rent for.
There were deals being done there just to keep businesses alive, and I think
this was not a good deal.
Everyone,
I have to tell you.
No, but everyone needed to come to the party. Yeah, but the tenants and the landlords and the businesses and the government, and the insurance companies, because I think it was something we as human beings and as South Africans had never experienced anything like that. And we weren't prepared for it. No matter how prepared you could have been, I don't think you were.
And, you know, you take out an insurance policy on anything. The detail that you need to give is, and no one could call it COVID. Absolutely. But I must say, I was very disappointed with the property company we worked with. I thought they gave no help at all, in fact. So we had to sell equipment to pay for rent, basically. But anyway,
Let me
but going back to
Yeah.
the events, and then it was golf that really
Helped you get back.
helped us get back into the swing of things. Then you look at, even Ellis Park, they struggled to get going after COVID, and and it's just, you look at various elements of our industry. Some have got through. When you look at rugby in itself, the Springboks, you get a successful team, you've got a successful product, and at a Springbok level, it's fantastic. But everywhere else, it's a bit tight.
I want to say that I'm a South African, not planning to ever go anywhere, never have been planning to go anywhere. I love sport, all sport. I support South African sport. And I've been to many sporting events, South African sport, the World Cup Rugby 1995, the Soccer World Cup, the Cricket World Cup. I mean, I was at an amazing one day at Wanderers when Herschel Gibbs and the amazing team. Yeah. Oh, it was what an amazing time and experience. And I'm a big supporter of the tour, Johan Rupert's tour and the PGA tour and the DP World Tour. We love it. Everyone loves it because all our golfers are there. And then along came Live, this tour. And not sure what to make of it. No one really knew what to make of it. And we hadn't actually experienced what Live had to offer. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to say I don't think a lot of people watched it on TV because we couldn't really understand it unless our South African team was in the final cover trying to win the team event. Would we pay much attention on the TV? But I wasn't even sure, and as a sportsman, whether to go and watch this Live event at Steyn City. But you put that event together with all the infrastructure and everything that went together, and that must be possibly the biggest event that you've ever been part of. Maybe, I'm guessing here. But I was there. I went through that experience. It was incredible. The whole way, I think that everything was set up, the way from the organization to the entrance, to the leaving, to the park and rides, just the whole experience, the amount of people that were there that participated, the enthusiasm, the excitement, and it's testament to afterwards what they said and how the experience of all the players. That must be for you the pinnacle of all your sporting events, looking back at what we experienced and putting South Africa on an entertainment map that we can deliver something so superb. And that, I must say, I'm going to give you credit to you. You were part of that whole thing that was put together.
Yeah.
Talk us.
Well, firstly, yes, I think it is probably the best event I've been involved with, without a question of a doubt. However, I'll take you back a bit. 2003 is when I first went overseas to have a look at a Live event, because there was a possibility it was coming here in 2024. So I went over and had a look, and was starting to speak to relevant people around the event coming here. So for 3 years, we worked to bring it here in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, what helped is the Stingers at the time, now the Southern Guards, but they wanted it here. They believed in South Africa. They believed that we could actually pull this off. And then last year at the JCB in Birmingham, Gator McKenzie was there, and he announced at that event that it was coming here.
And I think the person that was the CEO of the golf course at the time was a guy named Tim, and he's from Royal, wasn't he?
Not Tim, no, it's Chris Bentley.
I mean, Chris Bentley, sorry. Chris Bentley from Royal.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go into that now, because then you start looking at how Live, and listen, the organization, and the attention to detail, the person who must take the majority of the credit is someone like a Chris Bentley, because he's the one who had the vision and the trust in certain suppliers. Listen, I was one of probably 50 suppliers. So yes, we had a influential role because what you saw was pretty much what we did. But behind the scenes, you've got the caterers, you've got the liquor suppliers and security, even the scaffolding. If you see the amount of work that Unispan did to do all that scaffolding was immense, absolutely immense. And then you look at the planning, the drawings. We went back and forth 10, 15, 20 times on drawing designs. Because now you've got to remember, you're dealing with people who have done 30 odd live events now, and this is our first one. So we have to do it without a footprint. Now the footprint's here, it's a lot easier. But we've got to try and mimic what Adelaide did, and that was the benchmark for everyone. That we surpassed the crowd attendance and support for this event. We surpassed Adelaide, which was the biggest event.
How many people a day?
There was over 105,000 people, not per day, it was over the period, 105,000 people that came to that event. Now, on TV, it probably looked more because it's so spread out. And at times there were 10, 15 people deep. Now, the problem with things like that is you never know. Whenever there's the general public's involved, because the corporate works 6 months in advance. So you know pretty much what a corporate wants and how many people they want to entertain and so on and so on. But with general public, you never actually know. And Liv was selling tickets literally up until, in fact, they were still selling tickets on Friday, Saturday, for days that were still available. And then you look at the weather we had to put up with, and the people still kept coming. The event went ahead, and I don't know if you saw that. You would have got WhatsApps and communication from the tour, the Live tour, on time starts. They brought the time forward because they're looking at the weather. They're saying it's going to lightning at 4 o'clock, so we got to start earlier. And little things like that, the behind the scenes thing. I still don't know how many people were actually in the employ of Liv over this thing, but it has to go into the hundreds because it's just incredible how every detail these guys have experienced it already. And then when you work with people like that, it gives you a new perspective and new excitement for this business.
One thing, when you go and watch your football or rugby, you go into a stadium, its infrastructure is all there.
Absolutely.
And you go to your hospitality. When you go into a golf course, there's nothing.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no infrastructure. You got to build it months in advance. You got to get it all ready. It's got to work. It's got to be safe, and it's got to be conducive to a good experience. And again, I wish really we'll live in the tour and everyone could just get together and we could have something like as a joint venture or a team that all works at everyone, because I think the uniqueness about what you put together there, I'm not here to talk about Live or the tour, but I think because it's only one of the year, everyone wanted to be there. They wanted to experience and see it. It's just similar like the Nedbank, when Nedbank was the only $1 million event in the, it was supported. It was only one, and I think that's what makes it the demand. There's only one event of the year, and hopefully it'll all come right. But kudos to you and your team, and for everyone that was involved into that event, because I think it really put South Africa on an entertainment map. Never mind the golfing map, and to our team that did so well, and to all the players that came here and participated and had so many good things to say about South Africa. I mean. The word is traveling fast. I mean, even Patrick Reed recently, when he traveled here and played in the DP World tournaments, he had only good things to say about South Africa. So I think all of you guys are doing an incredible job with putting something like this together.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if I might add as well, we had a record Investec SA Open at Stellenbosch. So Stellenbosch came out, and it was the highest amount of spectators. Two and a bit weeks before Live, the Investec SA Open was the highest amount of people purchasing tickets at a SA Open or any South African golf event for the SA Open, which is absolutely incredible. You look at a small town like Stellenbosch that came out of the woodwork. Everyone was so supportive. It was fantastic. It was sold out Saturday and Sunday. So no more tickets. They stopped sales on Saturday and Sunday, which is incredible.
And it was a great finish.
Absolutely,
to the last hole.
Absolutely. And you talk of Patrick Reed turning up to play. Ernie was there, and all these players that just and then you suddenly look at Liv and you see the quality. But SA Open was over 42,000 people.
Amazing.
We were talking over 100 for Liv. But you take a Investec SA Open, and there were over 42,000 people that went to that event.
Well, I think you mentioned Ernie. I think Gary Player first, but Ernie and the guys in the 90s, I mean, they must have, the marketing of South Africa, they did an amazing job. And I think a lot of people are here because of people like Ernie, just being there. He himself is such a great ambassador for the game. And I got to spend some time with him recently, and he's just like the ultimate all-rounder South African. He's the most humble, easygoing guy, and you can have a drink with him, and he can give you as you give in.
Absolutely.
But he's such a great guy, and for South African sport, my hair stand on my chest because it's so exciting to be. And that golf tournament was exciting. Casey Jarvis came through. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And just going back to Ernie, him and Rory McIlroy, quite a few years ago now, but Rory said to him, listen, I'd like you to play, when Ernie was still at the top of his game, I would like you to play at my Irish Open. And Ernie said, absolutely, as long as you can play in the South African Open. And that was the one at Glendow.
We watched.
Where Rory came and just transformed that event. And this is the beauty of what a true ambassador to this country is, to encourage people that people want to see. And you invite them to your country and they come. And that for me was incredible.
Brennan, the whole team's performance this weekend, but Burmese, the way he conducted himself, he's a legend. They need to pay him more.
No.
Yeah, and Brendan was unbelievable. I'm glad to see he's got his game back. Yeah. But that whole team, we've got something to be proud of as South African people. And
Shaw was playing with back spasms the whole weekend. Yeah. In another tournament, I think he might have pulled out.
Yeah.
But he was struggling. He wasn't fit. And he had back spasms and all sorts of things, but he soldiered on for the team.
Shame.
No, listen, these guys, and what they've done, I think they were just exhausted by the end of it because they'd just given so much to this event. And there's a lot of off-field stuff, on-field stuff. They were incredible for our country.
Tell me about what do you think made your business one of the leaders in the industry, and what do you put it down to? Because you are out there as one of the top event coordinators in the country, and I think you can be proud and humble at the same time.
Well, not for 1 second can I say I could have done it without the team around me. I've got incredible staff, dedicated people. Just over the last 4 or 5 days getting Liv going at the end, I think they pulled 4 or 5 all-nighters just to get certain things up to speed, because when the rain comes, you can't really do certain things. So I think my staff are incredible, their commitment. And then you talk of patience, you talk of all these words, patience and absolute grit when you've got to do it. And understanding what we're trying to deliver. We're trying to deliver the best experience for you or me or anyone else that's going to these events. All we're trying to do is give you the best experience. And we don't for 1 second try not to, but how hard they try to actually get that across the line. And they're all different. No matter how many events you do, there's always a curveball somewhere.
So, do you say international could learn from us, or do you say we can? Who can we learn from? Who do you think the best in delivering events? Or I don't want to say sport only, but whole experiences. Where would you say the benchmark is?
I must say, I tend to go to a lot of events abroad because I always think I'm going there for inspiration. Yes, I get a few tips and things when I go there, but I think we sell ourselves short here sometimes, where we're always trying to compare ourselves to.
And we could be the leaders.
Well, certainly up there. You know, we're not a masters in the States, but you look at some of the other events that I've seen in Europe on the golfing front. You know, we up there. We offer and even in the rugby stadia and the cricket stadia, you know, what you get at Lords or at Twickenham is nothing near what you get here. We over deliver sometimes on what you get just on the catering side. You know, we're very good because we are a country that likes things to be good, nice, and a cold beer and something nice to eat is always important.
I'm going to ask you I've got the last couple of questions. We're running out of time, but the digital side of it and the AI side of it and the whole, where's it going to with events? I mean, and after that, maybe which events do you think obviously the Grand Prix we want to get here, and I think it could be coming in the next couple of years. But I mean, how does the digital side? Where's it going to within your industry?
Well, you know,
I saw the advertising boards now were unbelievable. They were not static or digital, it was incredible. The names and the faces and the videos were changing instantaneously, almost.
No, you look at you know the big screens, for example, at these golf events. The quality, you know, you could be in your own lounge watching your 65-inch TV, and the quality is as good, if not better. And you're out in the bright sun or whatever. So the technology on that point of view for me is mind-blowing. You know, the digital boards, you know, you go back to the old days where it used to be like a PVC sign around every cricket stadium. Now the digital era has kicked in, and it's just incredible what people.
Even at the Calvin Harris, who was there. I mean, you kind of, and Black Coffee, and you kind of like they were standing in front of you, you know.
Yeah. But you know, you talk of live versus what AI can do or can't do. There's still nothing like, you know, you talk of how often when you're watching TV, does the hairs on your arm stand up? But if you were at the Rugby World Cup in '95, if you were at that game at the Wanderers, if you were at Live, when you see what gets people going, and the excitement and the pride. Yeah, listen, you got to see it live. You know, you can't experience that through AI. That's for sure.
Are we going to get the Grand Prix? Yeah.
Listen, I thought we were very close about a year or so ago. And I don't know what really transpired, but it didn't happen. And there was talk of the track, and they wanted a different track. They love to be in Cape Town, you know. So Lewis Hamilton's come out on more than one occasion saying,
I think Gayton wants it, yeah. I think they've got the right person trying to get it, yeah.
Listen, Gayton's out there. I know he's been lobbying heavily at events overseas and locally. And it's not from lack of trying, that's for sure. I think it's dates and all that sort of stuff. It's a setup. You know, we did a formal quote for a possible F1 coming to Kyalami, and I could not believe the amount of infrastructure and work that needed to be done. You know, we still think our pits there at Kyalami are fantastic, but they would have had to have made it 3 times bigger just to support the F1 cars that would be coming out.
I heard. Lee, as a businessman, come from absolute humble beginnings. I mean, for literally nothing, learning, growing, developing, starting your own business, to where you are, to the leader in the industry, one of the leaders in the industry, delivering, being part of the most magnificent business. As a graduate coming out of varsity, any advice to someone leaving varsity and saying to what they should be doing, how to get into the industry? Well, the difficult, or the barriers to entry, tough to start your own business?
Well, I think there's two elements to the question. I think one is you need to get into the industry and see it from inside out. You know, it looks very sexy when you're there with your parents or some mates in a private facility somewhere watching the F1 or golf. But, you know, behind the scenes, it's a very, very demanding job. It's a lot of things can go wrong if you don't have the patience or the acumen for something like this. So maybe go in, get an internship. Don't walk in and say, I want a job, you know, straight away. Do an internship. Go and understand the intricacies of this sort of industry before you jump into it, firstly. And to go into your own business, sadly, unless you've got a rich uncle, you know, it is a very, very expensive business with the infrastructure and all of those things that go with it. But there's always room for everyone. But as long as you're dedicated and you can deliver a service, a sustainable service on a continuous basis, because like I think I mentioned right in the beginning, you're as good as your last game. If you do not perform, there's 5 or 6 people around you that can do the same job.
Your advice to an entrepreneur, one character trait that defines you or they need to make it in business in South Africa, the most important one that you think that shaped you?
I think consistency in delivery, taking pride in what we do, and a bit of patience. You know, you need all of those elements to get it across the line, you know, because regardless of how well you think you've done, there's always someone else's perception that it might not be what you think. Because expectation of people is tough. So that's why if you could just keep some sort of consistency and pride in what you're doing, I think that's half the battle.
Well, let me tell you, some people are going to ask me why was Lee on this channel? I can tell you right now, you're involved in almost every single property that we're involved in, and your name keeps coming up and the business keeps coming up, from humble beginnings to where you are today, making South Africa and everyone proud to be South African, for delivering the most exceptional experience in all these sporting and entertainment events. We want to thank you for allowing for being here with us, for allowing us to invite you and to be here with us today, and for sharing your wonderful story. And congratulations to you and your team and to everyone that had anything part of anything, because you are, in effect, behind the marketing experiences that we have. And congratulations and thank you again for being here today. Thank you, Lee.
Wonderful experience. Thank you very much. You made it very comfortable as well. Thank you.
This is Norman Raad, and I'd like to thank you for watching today's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you on the next episode.